Hello.
Hello.
Dancing
It's such a
away,
ball.
getting right into the swing of the tune there.
It's a good
How
one.
are you?
I'm all right. Yeah, good. Just
Fleeing
chaotic.
around the streets of Huntly, flitting.
Yes, in the middle of a house move. Hence the naked shelves behind me. I'm not going to show you anything else in this room because, well, you thought I'd fallen over a minute ago, but I literally stood up and just knocked a whole cascade of boxes and books off the floor and then fell over them trying to turn my light on. So it's chaotic. Well,
Great fun.
happy,
Great.
yeah, great fun indeed. We love
I mean,
it.
it could be worse. You could be moving into your current place instead of out of it.
That's true. And you know what? I have moved a lot. So if there's one thing I'm good at, it's moving house.
What did you tell me? It's the 10th time in, 18 years or something like that?
10th house move in 17 years.
17 years.
Yeah.
Mad.
So literally like the sort of gypsy queen of house moves, or like a hermit crab, potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, nice
Yeah.
hermit crab.
Hermit crabs don't get enough airtime. They're such little weirdos. And you know what's the cutest thing about hermit crab, right? If they get into a shell and they're like, nah, this one's a bit too big for me, they'll literally just wait for another hermit crab and say, here, look, this one's for
Nice.
you. And then and they'll just move out the way, like, you're right, nice one. And then they go on from finding, how cute is that?
Would you not be raging if you couldn't find another bit? You're like, well, actually, can I get that back, please?
Yeah, I know. Seriously, like, yeah.
The other hermit crab's
Bunch
like,
of-
nah, you gave it to me. Dibs.
Do you think hermit crabs ever have like an empty and just like all go around each other's mates and just go like mad for it? Like,
Yeah, that's what happens when you leave your sandcastle bucket on the beach. They all just pile in and have a massive rammy.
just like giving it a large. I'm just going to pre-warn everyone that I'm overtired, so I am going to try and stay on track with whiskey, but like, I can't guarantee what's going to come out of my mouth tonight. Anywho's, how are you?
Good, yeah. Probably in the same mental state with I'm living off about 2 hours sleep at the moment. Bria Rose is going through that. You know what? Sleep through the day is good, but sleep at night is overrated. Let's keep everyone up. And Killian's obviously hearing us up, so he's decided he wants to come through and make sure he's not missing out on anything. So it's amazing. I'm actually so glad to be on tonight, just to leave them. So peaceful in this garage at the moment. It's unbelievable. Great.
Enjoying our moments of we're enjoying our moments of freedom. I like it. Lots of people watching too.
We do indeed. I'm going to say, I just see Bob Sander. Great to have you on. He's comment saying I got a nice Firkin Altmore, and I've just read it as I've got a nice frickin' Altmore. Those frickin' Altmores really everywhere. But good evening to Dave. He's on tonight. That's Julia. Good evening to you. Good evening, Bob. Good evening to Frank. P-Head is joined. And Dave is cracked open. I seen you on Insta at the last week, I think it was, Dave Fackerson. You cracked open the Dramore 18-year-old. That's part of the 5-year anniversary, I think it was. Rick is on. Good morning, Rick, over in San Francisco. Rick says good morning to all the Blethren. As is Callum, good evening to you. We have had a good week. Looking forward to Thursday Dram, 100%. Mm-hmm. Kat, are you moving to an island? Asks Rick.
No, this is one of the first times that I'm not actually moving to a far-flung new corner of Scotland. I'm just moving across the road. So yeah, that's probably the smallest house move I've ever done. But yeah, I saw you were on with Leanne the other night as well, Rick. What a fun chat that must have been. I haven't seen all of it, so I'll have to get back and rewatch it all. That would have been awesome to sit in on.
It sounds like some of the comments I've kind of flicked through, it looks like they had a great laugh. Same, Rick. It's just finding the time at the moment between work, nappies, and toddlers to do that.
Wait. Work, nappies, or work nappies? Like
work nappies is a thing. It saves so much time. And a lady work nappies is the best. Helps you drink so much more whiskey as well.
This is it.
Oh dear. Callum is having a flight of Rassay, Harris, and Wireworks. The best design bottles of the new wave. Are they? Well, we'll discuss that tonight, I'm sure. Which is a nice segue, if ever we needed a segue, into introduce our guest tonight. So let's have Stephen Shand. Let's hope once again that this goes smoothly. Hello, how are you?
How's it going?
Very well,
Okay.
thanks.
We're
I'm
excited
glad
to
you're still
have you
here after
on.
hermit crabs and nappies as an introduction.
Yeah,
You
so listen along to that. I haven't really got much to add on either front. I don't have much to do with hermit crabs, and I don't have any kids, so it's fine. Although we have just had my my partner's niece, partner's sister and baby niece staying last week, so like the house was just chaos. You know, it was just a little toddler running around for 3 days, so that was good fun. But yeah, that's my only exposure to nappies so far, luckily.
They're great when you have them for 3 days.
What nappies?
You don't want a 3-day nap.
Well, 3-day nappy, I'm not sure. Yeah. If you've got a 3-day-old nappy, you need visitors around your house too.
I think so.
I think. Also, good evening, Mark Watt. He is on today. We had Mark on not too long ago and chatted about his bottle design, which brought up a few fun topics.
I know, Mark. We did a little bit of work last year before with the single cask, and I know some of his whiskies, but I haven't actually seen many of them out and about, which is more of an issue with me, I suppose. But yeah, has there been a new design, or is he kind of?
No. We had some people comment that the taste bud maybe looked like something else as well.
Right. Okay. Bit glandular.
Which is great for the ambiguity.
Yes. Abstract.
Yeah.
Steve, welcome along. I don't know how well known you are to the people at home. If they maybe sourced you out or checked out your website when we launched the page, or if they knew about you before. But for those who maybe don't know who you are, do you want to give us just a wee overview?
Sure. I mean, hopefully, because as the channel was loading up, saw all the previous people that were on the show. I was like, oh, I know them. And it's obviously quite a lot of them are whiskey ambassadors or blenders or in production. And these days I'm pretty much, in design and marketing and a bit of consultancy as well. So hopefully this is interesting for people and maybe kind of tells the story of another aspect of the whiskey industry, although you might have had other designers on before, I'm not sure. Basically, my name's Stephen Shand. I'm based here in Edinburgh, and I am a freelance illustrator, designer, marketeer, consultant, true definition of that, like jack of all trades, master of none, I guess. People always kind of forget the second half of that expression. I've kind of been working in the whiskey industry since 2011. I came up here. I was born in Edinburgh, but I was raised in Cumbria, so you'll maybe spot the kind of the Northern English accent. So I came back up to Edinburgh to study at Edinburgh College of Art. Studied animation and visual communication. Graduated in 2009. Right in the middle of the financial crash. Nobody's looking for animators in Scotland at that time, 2009. I'd previously done bar work. My sister's a publican, so every summer I was working in her pub. I was like, right, well, I guess that's the option. I go into the pubs and just start pouring pints of real ale. And after a couple of years of doing that, I was like, I need to specialize. I like whiskey. I thought I knew a little bit about it, and kind of stumbled into the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, as quite a few people I think that you've had on this chat have either worked at or frequented. And kind of took it from there. And I've kind of worked primarily with like smaller independent whiskey companies when I was employed with them. And it's anything from like marketing, a little bit of design. I retrained as a blender in 2015. Did blending for a wee while, and then returned to the on-trade, but we're a company called Caledonian Heritable. that many people might not know, but they're the largest on-trade company in Scotland. And in Edinburgh specifically, if you know of like the Dome, Bannerman's, Cask and Barrel, Ryan's Bar, you know, they've got tens and tens of managed bars. I was working with them, basically activating whiskey in those venues, training bar staff, doing that kind of stuff. And then in 2023, I kind of had enough of that and decided to take the plunge and just set up my own business and just start asking people, what do they need? You know, is it design work? Is it marketing work? Is it help at events? That type of thing. And I've got a few of my own side hustles in and around the whiskey industry as well. And yeah, for the last couple of years, I've just been taking it from there. But I suppose the core of my work, and probably why you wanted to chat to me today, is illustration, design, a lot of which features on whiskey labels, published in whiskey magazines, and yeah, that kind of thing.
That is quite the varied career, to be honest. I mean, like any one of those.
I love how you just dropped in casually. I retrained as a blender, did that for a little bit, and then just as you do, just didn't you go?
Yeah, I don't have like a PhD in biochemistry or anything like that. It was more just, you know, like some companies, when you chat to like the Diageo folk, and it's like, oh, right, no, they are like blenders, master blenders. You know, they've studied this in biochemistry for a decade, and they can nose every single new make in the Diageo portfolio and spot exactly which one is which. And it's like, they're at a different level. And I think when you talk to, I'm sure you guys have, when you talk to smaller companies, whiskey blenders, sometimes they literally just like fall into it because there's nobody else in the company to do it. Other times they've been shadowing somebody, maybe in a more informal way. So mine was kind of more of that background. And I did my brewing and my distilling diplomas. Stupidly didn't realize, I thought you had to do the brewing diploma to then be able to do the distilling diploma, because, you know, you need to brew before you can distill. Turns out there were two completely different diplomas. One was for brewing beer and one was for making whiskey. So I just did both of them at the same time.
Wow.
So smart enough to pass them, but stupid enough to do both at the same time without realizing.
I guess there is crossover though, isn't there? There were parts of the brewing that helped you become a better distiller.
Yeah, and I wanted to get like not first a distinction. I wanted to get like a distinction in both, but just the memory retention required that I don't have. There was just so much to remember in kind of like temperatures and volumes and all this kind of stuff, and especially the math side of it I struggled with. But yeah, I passed with both of those, and then it was like shadowing people. So like Norman Matheson, who is was a retired blender now. He was a blender for Invergordon before it was taken over by White and Mackay. So like shadowed him for a wee while, and then meeting folk like John Glass at Ian MacLeod Distillers, and kind of the most important tasting I think I ever did was with John Glass. And we sat down in like the tasting room in Broxburn, just outside of Edinburgh, and he was working on one of the Glengoyne teapot drams at the time. So there was just all these bottles of really dark, rich, intense Glengoynes and just all sorts in here. I was like, right, here we go, what we having. And he just pulled out all these like anemic, pilly-wally whiskies, some of which were like literally green as well. And it was it was a fault training course. So he took me through like all the major faults that you can have with whiskies. So if it's got like TCA, trichloroanisole, so if it's like funky and kind of wet cardboardy kind of smell, if the whiskey's gone green because somebody decided at the cooperage to hammer iron nails into the hoops and that contaminates the liquid, you know, all these kind of things. And then there was like Broras and Port Ellens, but they were like, again, just not enough cask maturation, even at 30, 40 years old. So every single one of the whiskeys was god awful, but it was like the most important tasting that I ever did in terms of like the training side of it.
I think that's probably, especially when you're blending, whether it's for a single malt release or you're a blend, a grouse or whatever, it's not so much finding the good stuff, it's making sure none of the bad shit goes in, isn't it? And it's taking out that risk of it.
Yeah, quality control. You know, so it depends on the type of blending, but a lot of it's kind of, you're like almost like a custodian you're on the rails already. It's rare that you're actually blending from scratch, just picking out whatever. So a lot of it is quality control and just making sure it doesn't get contaminated. Or I think some of the reality is as well, is like, right, this cask is contaminated. We need to do something with it. So how much of it can we get away with using? And that's maybe like, nobody likes to talk about that, but sometimes that does happen.
I mean, you can blend that out, can't you? A lot of the time.
Yeah, sometimes you can. And then like we had a green whiskey. So I was a brand manager for Weems, and we had a green whiskey single cask. I think it was a Brazier Glenlivet. And we hadn't spotted that this was going to happen, and we get one bottle of each to like take photos of and open up at festivals, and maybe to like send out samples to bloggers. And the thing was like bright green. I was like, oh my god, like what are we going to do with this? And we ended up talking to one of our importers in Germany at the time, and they're like, we'll take it all. I was like, really? And like, yeah. We'll pour it at Paddy's Day. It's something completely different. Like, we love it. Yeah. And they took the whole thing because there was nothing in the liquid that we could taste that was wrong with it. It was green. Yeah. Quite a strange one. But you come across these odd things sometimes.
Surely, like some of the sort of the off notes are quite subtle, though. I mean, is there ever a chance you get blind to some of these, like kind of, because some of your off notes are ones that you can actually have, like sulfur kind of notes and stuff. They're just similar to like sort of things you actually want as well. Is it quite hard to differentiate some of them? Yeah,
it can be, and I think it's all to do with context. So, like, if you're on a tasting panel and for whatever reason the panels decided to do the drams blind, you might be smelling like funky, slightly meaty notes in a whiskey, and if you knew what that was, if you knew it was a Campbelltown or a Craigellachie or a Mortlach, something that's got a little bit of kind of gutsiness to it, then it's fine. But if you're doing it blind and you maybe think it's going to be a light Speyside, it can be quite hard to place it. So I think it's always important to have that context. And then also water is really important. I think when you're blending, use your nose far more than taste. Your nose just has much more fidelity. Taste is just sweet, salty, bitter, umami. I'm missing one other there. What's the fifth one? Sweet, sour, salty, bitter, umami. There we go. All five. But the nose picks up much more delicacy. But when you're smelling like cask strength samples of whiskey, some of which are like 62, 63%, just the volatility of the alcohol solvency, it just overwhelms and it locks in aromas. So yeah, Norman Matheson, that first blending course I did with him, he would get a cask sample and he would dilute it 4 times as much water to the whiskey, because then, because we weren't drinking it. It was for quality control. And he said, at that level of dilution, bringing it down to 15, 20%, nothing can hide. That's where it really opens up, and maybe it was mild sulfur, but now it's really pronounced sulfur, or just something you didn't spot suddenly is there. And like maybe leaving the dram for a couple of hours or overnight and coming back to it, and you're really like stress testing it, because I suppose you never know what the consumer's going to do with it. Are they just going to shot it? Are they going to drink it? Are they going to put it in a cocktail? How's it going to react under those different circumstances?
I think we have that conversation quite a lot with not just customers in the shop, but as drinkers ourselves. It's just because a bottle's bottled at cask strength doesn't mean it has to be drunk at cask strength. And, add that water to it and take it down. They're just and people who say, we come across them all the time, and probably everyone in the industry either knows one or is one who says, I only drink at cask strength, and that's how it's meant to be drunk because that's how it's been bottled. And you're just like, no. If it's good enough for the blenders to drink it, 35% or 25%, then it should be good enough for you guys as well.
Yeah, I mean, 10 years ago, I used to drink almost nothing but cask strength. And I would still add a little bit, I'd usually drink half the dram neat and then dilute it just to see where it goes. But these days, I almost always add water or drink it a slightly lower ABV. I don't know if that's just age or experience or what it is. But yeah, I think with a cask strength bottling, it's not so, to me anyway, it's not so much that you should drink this neat. It's that it's hands off. We've not done anything to it. you decide what to do with it and take it from there.
Yeah. We had a tasting on, when we were Saturday night. Kat and I were at a whiskey gathering with some guys from the industry, and we had a tasting.
I saw some photos of that, yeah.
Yeah, it was so many photos. It was mental. It took up my Insta feed for 3 days, which was great. But I was trying so hard to put more water into it because I thought there's going to be a lot of whiskey drunk here. Let's. In the end, I think it was a Stogie, a wee cigar that put me over the edge, and we were at the end of. We were at the end of the table, and Matt says, "Oh, do you do a cigar?" I said, "Yeah, love a wee cigar." And by a wee cigar, I'm thinking, that small one. He took out a bit of a beast, and once you're committed, you're fully committed. And it was about halfway through that cigar, and I'm like, "I'm going to struggle with this," but I persevered, finished it, and I was like, "Yeah, that's me done. I am. I'm going to have to go now." And I think I ghosted the party. I just kind of got to the reception. Phoned a taxi and wait for outside.
You 100% did. Like, I saw you at the start of the night and you bought me a drink, and then it must have got to about 11 and I was like, I better buy one back. So I came down to find you. I'm like, you all right? I'll get you a drink. You're like, no, I'm done. And then I was like, okay, cool, right, well, don't go without saying goodbye. And I turned around, you're gone. I'm like, where's he gone? So yeah, but what a good night. It was it's just nice getting folk together. But like, listening to you chat, Stephen, is the exact reason why I wanted you on, because I knew you were more than just labels. Because we were speaking to Ola last week. I was like, oh, what's Stephen? And she's like, oh yeah, I met him doing this, and then so and so used to work there, and so knows him because of this. I'm like this guy is just like the octopus of whiskey with all his arms and different whiskey pies. It's such a weird analogy, but
well, yeah. So Jack of all trade, master of none is I think the best way that I summarize it, because even when I was working like full time for a brand, they were small brands, so there was always a lot on the table. You're always spinning a lot of plates, to throw more analogies into the mix. You were doing MPD, you were trade marketing, consumer marketing, website, you were liaising with designers, you were going out into market, you were budgeting, there's all of that to do. And I'm not saying that bigger brands don't deal with that as well. They obviously do to a larger scale, but I think they're more compartmentalized. And I just enjoy the variety. The variety I find more stimulating, and maybe it's just like I don't have the patience to just do one thing at a time. I mean, I remember talking to one person years ago who was working for one of the big guys. I was like, oh, so what is it you do? And they're like, yeah, so I coordinate and organize the cardboard for the end of aisle units that go into supermarkets. I was like, all right, that was their job. And I was just like, I couldn't, to me, that's harder work, because I just couldn't just lock into that one particular thing. So I like the variety. And then when I ended up going fully freelance in 2023, it just kind of came about organically, because I just started asking people. I was like, yeah, what do you need a hand with? And just being humble with it. If it was barrel top tastings or like helping out at festivals, if it was design work, helping with social media, just said yes and kind of just jumped into it. And then it's just, I think probably what I'm better at is the illustration, the design work. So that's the work that's kind of expanded more. But yeah, I do a lot of different things. And I think if you're in the industry long enough, you guys know yourself, it really is a small industry and everybody knows each other. So you just know everybody. I mean, Ola, I met Ola when she was at Whisky Society. We were both there at the same time. So I was upstairs at the bar at the Vaults, and she was down in like sales and events in the office downstairs at the time. And yeah, I mean, I was looking through, and there was like, you spoke with like Mariella, who was at SMWS down in London, and Thea, who's at Glenallachie now, but she was SMWS Queen Street back then. So yeah, you have these like alumni of like, if it's, it's Scotch Whisky Experience, it's SMWS. If they're maybe a slightly older generation, it's Oddbins or Freshers. You see these like pool of people, and especially on the smaller brands as well. I think people like jump around, and if you're going out into market, you'll be on an importer's stand, and I would be there like serving Kingsbarns and Weems, but someone has to go for a toilet break, so you jump behind the stand, and suddenly you're pouring Kilchoman and chatting about that to somebody. So although you're technically competitors, you're all peers really, and especially on that smaller scale, it's really kind of friendly and amicable. It's one of the nice things about the industry.
No, definitely. And yeah, I mean, just like the gathering we were at the other day, it was such a variety of, things from brand ambassadors to bar owners. And then on the chat tonight, you've got everybody from, whiskey geeks to Mark Watt, for example, who probably class as a whiskey geek too, but he's pointed out you've got a fantastic palate as well. He said that you've got a very, very good palate. So yeah, what's the expression like, separated, was it 2 degrees separate? I don't know what expression is. I'm not very good at expressions tonight. I literally just keep it octopuses and hermit crabs and everything, but
Yeah, keep it nautical. It's fine.
But yeah, you could be sitting next to somebody chatting whiskey, and then they know somebody else, and they know somebody else, and it's just such a small world, but it's such a lovely world to be part of too.
Yeah, because I think, for example, I'd heard of you, but I think the first time I knew who you were was through Chris's infamous Chris Coates's video. I was like, all right, okay, I'm connecting the dots here.
Yeah, I know, of all the things to go viral for, it was that. I mean, there's worse things, to be fair.
Yeah, I guess that's it. You can spend so much time in these entire departments trying to figure out like how to make something stick and go viral and stand out, but sometimes it's just a happy accident. It's what it is sometimes, I guess.
Exactly. It just takes a bit of filthy humor and some ejaculation. That's all it takes. But I love Christopher Coates. I think he's one of my favorite people in whiskey. He's just like the Labrador of whiskey. He's honestly, his enthusiasm is insane, but his knowledge is so up there as well.
It's really impressive. Last time I saw him was a couple of weeks ago. We hadn't seen each other in a while, but caught up at a dinner, and he's just miles ahead of me in terms of like just finger on the pulse of everything that's going on in the whiskey industry. Because I quite a lot of the time I'm like adjacent to it if I'm doing design work, and maybe not as in it as much as I used to be. But I've known Chris since 2008 or 9. I think we actually met outside of whiskey, just at like a house party. But then we kind of came up through the industry together.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. You're like the ninja of the whiskey world, though. You're just always there in the shadows. Like, we've probably always just passed each other.
That's the freelance part. You got to be out. You got to be out and be seen. I was supposed to be at Edinburgh Cocktail Week tonight, but it's fine. I'll pop there tomorrow.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm enjoying doing this. I think, it's tricky because I don't think I'm very good at like being the center of something. Like I'm rarely have photos of me taken. I don't like being on video. I think, in fact, if you try and find me on YouTube, the only other video there is of me is at like a whiskey festival in Germany, and I'd been out with the importer the night before, who's an ex-cop, and I think we were up till about 3 a.m. drinking. It's called Korn. It's just like a German like distillate straight from the freezer, and when you drink it that frozen, you kind of don't really notice it, but then you really notice it the next day. And this video of me on YouTube, I thought, because I'd been told it's like, oh, someone's coming to do like a little like podcast interview with me. I was like, great, cool, just mic it up and away we go. And I hadn't actually clicked that they would be filming me at the festival. So if you look at this footage, it's me behind the stand doing like a little mini like tabletop blending workshop, and my eyes are like pointing in opposite directions because I'm still a bit drunk from the night before. I don't really like. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's, I studied animation at uni, and they talk about animators as they want to be actors, but not on screen. They perform from behind the scenes. So I'm rarely maybe on that side of things, and just keep myself known and chatting to people, and like to get out and about and see what's going on in the whiskey world where I can.
Well, talking of animation, can we please get on to the most amazing thing that I've ever been gifted in my life? We need to we need to show an example of your amazing work and talk about your work. And I know you've got a little thing for us to all share as well that we can put on screen in a minute. But showing this will actually link into asking what everybody's got in their glass tonight too.
Oh yeah, I'm not actually giving myself a dram yet.
Well, this is it. I realised that we're a bit behind in that because we just got straight into like getting to know who you are. But So we've talked about your illustration work quite a bit, and you work alongside a few bottlers. So I've got 2 examples tonight that I can show of your work.
Yeah.
But if anybody follows my socials, you would have seen that it was my 40th birthday this year. And I got gifted something very, very special for my birthday. I got a bespoke label made for me. And honestly, this is one of I still get likes on this on my social media. It's insanely good. I love everything about this. So this was designed by you, of course, and commissioned by the lovely Paul McKendrick, who is not watching tonight because he's buggered off to Copenhagen. But yeah, look at that, guys. So genuine distillery cat label. There's a little cat on the barrel. And that's Glengarry. I love it. It's amazing.
So I'm trying to do, I'm looking through my messages to see if I can find the original concept drawing that Paul sent me. Because
did he do a drawing for you?
He did. I've got it. Here it is.
Oh, this is going to be good.
I don't know how easy it is to see that. Let the screen settle. It might. I don't know if it'll come up. Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah.
You're going to have to send me that. I want to see.
Yeah. You won't be able to see it on the screen. Let me see if there's another way I can bring it up. But it's basically.
Maybe if you turn the brightness down, would it work?
Yeah. Hang on. Sorry. All the tech and no idea. Yeah. So he got in touch and just had a rough concept, and I mean that's usually the way it goes. Oh, how do I screen lock this? It's turning us up. Sorry, this is painful to watch.
Emotions like this, watching this going round.
There you go. You can maybe kind of see
okay,
it.
yeah.
Just I love his picture of Glengarry. That could be a photograph. Honestly, that's insanely good.
Yeah, you've got all the mandatory minimums there. You got the ABV and the age and all that, and then it's just 3 lines.
How did you get hold of the architect's original drawing for that?
It's very good. Well, do you know what? I think that makes your talents even more profound, that you then created that. You're very talented, Paul, but however...
I imagine
I shouldn't have humiliated him with that drawing, but it had to be seen.
I mean, he turned up on the Blether in Dolly Sweetie bikini, so he's not going to be humiliated by a pencil drawing.
Do you know what, though? I mean, that was the start of a beautiful story, because it's blossomed ever since. So if I could be turned by something, it's going to be a Sweetie bikini.
No, it's great, and honestly, I think collaboratively posting that, I've had a lot of feedback on it as well, and that's it. I like to be judged by my work rather than sit on a video and kind of wax lyrical about myself or whatever. So I rarely actually get to do this. But that one was fun. That was my 7th distillery drawing now, I think. So alongside my kind of freelance business, where if I'm doing label designs, some of them can just be very minimal and text based. It might be a private client who's got a cask of whiskey that they're needing to bottle up, and they'll be like, oh, I love the look of Aberlour. I want it to look like an Aberlour. So you don't want to do a Lidl style brand knockoff. You're looking at right, okay, that's a traditional label set. It's limited colors. You want some nice sans serif fonts. Serif fonts, and kind of build it from there. But then others are much more, just much more to them. There's a lot of rich illustration in there. There might be stories. You might be involved in the tasting notes. So it kind of runs the full scale. But then what I tried to do in my spare time, kind of just outside of lockdown, I was like, I need to get out of the house. So I just bought a bike and started cycling around Scotland and wild camping. And that's where I'd go to distilleries, because, that was, well, the point is to cycle around Scotland, I suppose. But so I just go to remote parts, to Skye, Outer Hebridean Way, the NC 500, and just pop by distilleries and just start doing little sketches, take reference photos. And since then, I've just been very slowly doing quite detailed illustrations of various distilleries that I like. But it's a slow process. I suppose yours is a private one. That's the 7th, but the 6th that I've done, they take quite a while. And there's 150 distilleries in Scotland, so I don't think I'll get to all of them. I'll get them all drawn, unless I draw them like Paul does.
It's awesome, though. It's such Yeah, it's such a
Good. I'm glad
fantastic.
you liked it. Yeah, it was a fun one to do.
I do. I love it a lot, actually. And for somebody asked me, Bob, no, it's not a 40-year-old Glengarry the bottle. But it is a 40-year-old. It's a grain whiskey that Paul looked out for me. So it's very, very special.
Yeah, I
It
did
was
query
very
that one, and hopefully the whiskey police aren't coming to halt that.
well. It's I was going to say it's boxed up and moved away, but it's not. I've literally just shown it to you, but it's fine.
I've got one interesting fact about that label. Actually, is that it's printed on wallpaper.
No way.
Yeah, so I wanted to get like it was quite short notice, and I wanted to get like some paper stock that had like a nice texture, almost like a canvas to it. And I was speaking to the printers in Edinburgh, and they were like, "We could order something. It's going to take ages, but I actually think this wallpaper stock that we have will work perfectly." So it's a self-adhesive wallpaper stock for both the label and for the frame. It's all done on the same. So you'll notice the paper is the same stock, which is quite rare. You usually use different paper stock for a label as you would, for like a Jickley art print or something like that.
That's fantastic because you can it's really thick. You can almost see like little wee frayed bits at the side, which is very cool. Kind of
it's the tactility that helps sell it a little bit as well. You just want something that feels nice and looks nice.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm not opening that tonight though. I'm going to do another one of your latest works from the Lady of the Glen which is literally been released.
Yeah.
So I've got the Torre Egg one.
Yeah, so that's the Torre Egg. So I don't actually have that bottle yet, but I thought it'd be fitting to have the cast samples that they originally sent me, but the only one I've finished is the Torre Egg because it's bloody delicious. They're all good, but yeah.
So good.
Yeah, and I think that is the first independently bottled Torre Egg. Well, it's the only one I've had. Maybe there are some other ones out there, but it's the first, indie bottling of that distillery that I've seen. I don't know if Mike, if you've come across it anywhere else or anyone else.
Got picked to the post slightly by Thompson Brothers, didn't they?
Yeah, Thompson's had one, but you probably won't be able to count it, but the Whisky Shop in Skye got a cask exclusive. But that's like a Torre Egg bottling of it, but it was an exclusive to them. But so probably slightly different. But yeah, Thompson Brothers, and then your one.
Yeah, but it's a fantastic dram. It's
show everybody the label so they can have a look at your artwork there.
So it's quite a little tricky to see, but basically what you have there is 3 different giants, and they're fighting at the. I don't know if this is how you pronounce it. I just say Kerrang, like the magazine or the metal channel. But the Kerrang is the northern peninsula of the Isle of Skye, and there's a lot of kind of rich legends over there. There's a lot of kind of Nordic Viking influence to those stories as well. So what you quite often get in the Outer Hebrides and Inner Hebrides is stories of giants. So it might be that certain like standing stones are said to be like giants that were caught by the sun and turned into stones. And then other legends are that the literal landscape is like defeated giants or was carved out by giants. And that's what the story of the Kerrang is, that it was the playground of the giants. And they would battle and fight in there. And, the kind of rough, rugged landscape is literally carved out by those giants, like throwing themselves around. And actually, if you see it's from a while ago now, the Steven Spielberg BFG film. I don't know if I really liked it. I liked the original, like the book and the illustrations, but at the end of that film where they dropped them all off by helicopter, they actually dropped them off on Skye, I think it is. So it's like a kind of nice little ode back to it. But yeah, that drawing, I actually ended up looking at a lot of wrestlers for it. I needed reference drawings. So I was on Pinterest looking at like WWE and like Olympic wrestling, and you can see the giants. Is it called a suplex? So he's like suplexing him over onto the ground. So it's quite an interesting one, and it was hard to color. The first time I colored it, it was quite pink, and it made me feel a bit sick. It was very like veiny and pink. So I recolored it, and actually getting the whiskey samples was great for that, because sometimes you're drawing for a client for whiskey and you're doing it in complete isolation. But Lady of the Glen, like Gregor and Paul and all that, the ideal clients, they really get it. And like they took, I get to go up to Dalgety Bay, and we pick out some casks and nose them. I get the samples, and I was really stuck on the colouring of that particular one, and just having the Torre Vague, it was like flinty, and it's got that fiery scorched smoke to it. So like the flintiness, it made me think of like dustiness and rocks. So it's quite like a dry palette. It's very warm and dry and arid in the color scheme. And then the sky, it's a little bit like the screen painting. The sky is like on fire. It's that bright orange kind of sunset, and that comes straight from the flavors of the whiskey. It's inspired by the flavor. So it's amazing to get to collaborate with them in that way, and the whiskey directly connects through to what's on the label. Because sometimes whiskey packaging, what's there versus the whiskey, the continents apart. But yeah, it's good to try and tie them in together.
That's very cool. We've got some cool giants. Myths from up in Aberdeenshire, don't we, Mike? We've got two highest hills. It was meant to be Jock of North and Jock of Bedford.
Formidable Jock, I think he was known as. The Formidable Jock. There has been a whiskey about called the Formidable Jock. But it's been discontinued since about the 70s or maybe 80s. Me and Stephen have spoken about that already. So watch the space.
Yeah, I'm going to think I'll lead on that. I don't know what we're talking about and what we aren't. So watch this space is probably the best way to put that. So I think with Lady of the Glen, I mean, I don't actually have those bottles yet, the newest outturn. I'll get up to Fife and get them. But basically, the series is called the Samhain series. And the way it started was I was at Fife Whisky Festival, which is like I think one of my favorite whiskey festivals now. It's just got like a nice coziness, and it's a lot of independent brands, and I think Justine does a great job there as well. And I was working for a brand, but at the same time, Justine kindly gave me like one of the spare rooms, which had previously been used for like masterclasses, and she let me put like some of my distillery drawings and other work up just to have like a little bit of an exhibition. I don't think anybody knew it was there. I'd get to pop in every once in a while, and it was just folk who were looking for the toilet or just needed like a quiet place to make a phone call. We're just in this like space. But Gregor from Lady of the Glen, he was saying he stumbled in there again just to like take a phone call, and he was like, "Oh wow, what's all this?" And suddenly saw like all the drawings. And there was one in particular, which is an illustration I did of Robbie Burns' Tam O'Shanter. And I did that illustration for a bar that I was area managing in Edinburgh called Whisky, which was opened by a guy called Chris White in 2015. And I was like, we need like an illustration for the menu. So I did the scene where Tam kind of goes up to the kirk and peers in, and he sees all the witches and warlocks dancing and all that kind of stuff. So kind of spooky vibes to it. And then years later, I recolored it and just I've mounted it within the poem, and I just have it as a print that people can buy and hang on the walls or whatever if they want. And Gregor, I think, was quite enamored by that one, and he came and saw me and asked if he could buy it. I was like, yeah, no problem. And I don't know if I like ran it through the Zettel then, or I was just like, yeah, I'll get the money from you later. But then like I was working the stand, and it came to like tidy up time, festival's over. I go back into my little gallery space, and 2 or 3 prints are missing off the wall. I'm like, oh no, those are like, people have asked for these, and I need to get them. And I was going to the security. I was like, somebody's come and taken these. Like somebody's just, you know what it's like at the end of a festival. Sometimes there's just, quite a few drunk people stumbling around, and they might be trying to grab bottles off of a table or whatever. I was like, damn it, somebody's stolen these pictures. And I was getting all like flustered and running around and like shouting at security. I was like, where are they? Where are they? And I can't remember if it was Gregor or Paul. They were like walking out the back door with the print. And all they'd done is like they couldn't find me, and they're like, "Oh well, it's fine. We'll settle up later. We'll take it." And I honestly thought the security were gonna like tackle them to the floor and start beating them.
Oh no!
Like, no, let's stop. Like, but yeah, so So yeah, Gregor took that one with actually no resistance at the end. It was fine. And then he took another illustration of mine, which was an illustration I did of Uist. My partner's from the Outer Hebrides, so I get to go up there a couple of times a year, and it's an amazing place to draw. And from that, we just kind of got the conversation going, in particular about like Scottish myths and legends, and we kind of developed it into this concept, which was the Samhain series. So Samhain, if people don't know, that's like the proto Halloween, kind of slightly pagan, slightly Christian. They still, to a certain extent, celebrate it out in the Outer Hebrides. You can find black and white photos of the 1920s with people wearing like Halloween Samhain costumes made out of like wool and grass and all this kind of stuff. It's really cool. So we took that as like the jumping off point, and then went to the warehouse, sampled different whiskies. The first release we did in 2024 were, I think, all octaves, because we were still trying this out as a concept in octaves. It's a slightly more friendly amount of whiskey to release. It's 50, 60 bottles at a time, and we looked at each of the distilleries and then try to research and tie a specific myth and legend from the local area into the packaging. So I was like, come up with the story, or like finesse the story that was there, get it down to 60, 70 words so you could fit it onto the label, then come up with an illustration that suited it, color scheme, and then where I could kind of weave in little whiskey tidbits, little secret, almost like a Where's Wally, little things that you could put in there that were relating to whiskey. So yeah, we did 6 of those in 2024, and then this year we scaled it up. So it's still 6, but they're like barrels and hogsheads. So there's like 200 to 250 bottles of most of them. So I don't have the bottle here, but I've got the 31-year-old Strathclyde, which is, what was the label we did for that? The Ghost of Dumbarton Rock. So it's quite tricky with Strathclyde. It kind of ties in a little bit with Glasgow, being the location of the distillery. But Glasgow's a tricky one in that, like, a lot of the myths and the legends are either really super mundane. It's like, there's a bus timetable, and every once in a while a phantom number comes up on the bus timetable, or they're like way too dark and grisly. It's like child murder or like asylum houses, where then it's just like it's just maybe a bit too hardcore and dark to associate with whiskey. So it's quite tricky to find that balance. And my kind of like tone check for each one of these stories is like, would it be in like Hammer horror film in the 60s? It's got to have almost a slight campiness and softness to it, because you're associated with whiskey and alcohol, so you got to have some common sense with it. So I ended up looking at the Kingdom of Strathclyde, which was like a Cumbric kingdom, kind of, I think, like 9th century. And the house of that Strathclyde kingdom was Dumbarton Castle, Dumbarton Rock. And then when you research that castle, there's all these kind of like ghostly sightings, and it's that place has been a fortification for 1,000 years. So there's Picts and Vikings and medieval ghosts and all this kind of stuff. So the label, it's
they've got a witch too, don't they? That's your labels there. It's not a very good picture.
Yeah. I mean, I might actually be able to bring that one up if you give me a second. I didn't have it to hand, but I'll dive into my unorganized client folders, see if I can pull it up.
Well, while you're looking for it, I'm going to share something off the back of the stories we've already had. Canva and AI are great. So here's something I've just whipped up for you, Stephen.
Oh, AI, my favorite.
Let's see if this comes up. There we go.
Oh, wow.
Stephen, as his octopus, juggling all these different whiskey projects. There we go.
That's very good.
Not coming to a whiskey label near you.
Yeah, this is the madness of becoming a freelance illustrator in 2024, 25 with like the rise of AI. But I think you can have a bit. yeah, you can have a bit of fun with it, and I don't want to name and shame, but there are black brands that are using it, for their social media and not saying that it's AI content. And then I'm seeing AI generated artwork on labels as well. And I suppose it's a tough thing, because who am I to say how somebody runs their business, and they've got their own concerns and commercials and things like that. And, they may be wanting to streamline. And I use AI, I use AI. I use Grammarly for typing. I'm dyslexic. My whiskey labels, maybe I need to get the word count down from 100 words to 80 words. So I'll lean into AI there. But then I guess I'm being a bit of a hypocrite. I'm a stickler when I see it on illustrations, because I don't know. I think with whiskey's an artisan product. It's made by people to a certain extent. It's a quality product. And I think the best is when you collaborate with people and you don't see it as a cost, it's an opportunity. You can look to like the really high-end brands and see, like, what is it, Glenfiddich with Aston Martin right now. That's a collaboration where you're trying to, I assume, get a certain audience of F1 Aston Martin fans into that particular whiskey. And that doesn't have to just be in those lofty high heights. It can be with locals when it comes to like pubs and artists and musicians, and that's where you collaborate with like-minded people. So I think something's lost there with AI a little bit. And yeah, sure, it's more efficient, it's getting more accurate every day, but I still think working with real people that's on stuff it enriches everything that you're doing together. Anyway, sorry, rant over.
No, I do get that, because sometimes it's hard to tell real from fake as well. It gets to a dangerous point, because there's you're overloaded with misinformation at the best of times. If you put that with a really real glossy kind of AI slant on it, it definitely has the potential to be harmful as well as good.
Yeah, because I think I can spot it, but I'm sure there's times where it's gone under the radar. Or the opposite side of that coin that's a little bit more malicious is you think something is AI that isn't AI. And that's the other thing. It's like, oh, what is real anymore? And that's the weird, just unsettling thing about it. But I guess we get used to it. But I think the brands that like, I think it'll focus in more, so that people will be like, oh, well, we are using an artist, or we are using a writer or a poet or something like that. So we need to shout about it and show that we're taking that extra step. I mean, I draw primarily pen and ink by hand, but I color digitally most of the time. It's how I learned. I learned how to do animation. You would draw and you would essentially cell shade digitally underneath. It's how you do cartoons. So when I started illustrating, I just took that. That's what I knew, and that's how I draw. Mm-hmm. And years ago, certain whiskey blender from White Mackay who likes to throw, whiskey on the carpets. He had seen one of my drawings in either like Keepers of the Quake magazine or Whiskey magazine, and he got in touch with me, and he was like, I want the original. And I tried to contact him, but it went through like PAs and departments and stuff, and didn't get to see him. And then I met him in person a year later up at the Whiskey Experience, and I reminded him about it. He's like, yeah, I really want it. I want the original. Can I buy that off you? And I had to explain to him, there's no original. There's the pen and ink, black and white, but the color was all done digitally. And as I was explaining into what Photoshop was, I could just see him like glaze over and lose interest right away. And I think now with AI, I'm thinking, right, how can I react against that and be more traditional and be more tactile? So I'm starting to learn again how to, color with paints and bring, real earthy tactile elements back into the work. But I like that I still draw everything pen and ink and by hand.
That's awesome. My son does that. He's doing art and design at university, and I've shared some of his pictures online, actually. It just, he'll just knock it out in 5 minutes, and he'll just come through and say, yeah, I just drew this. I'm like, how have you done that? And it's just all pen and ink he does, but he does a lot of, he likes to kind of play around with shadows and shading and stuff, and just kind of
what kind of stuff is he drawing?
Just a lot of bits. So for his portfolio, before he left high school, he was focusing on sort of the dark side of superheroes. So a lot of it was like sort of the vigilante side of Batman. I'm going to get one off the wall. I'm moving house. It doesn't matter. Hang on 2 seconds.
No, I geek out, and I love that kind of stuff. You know, I guess when it comes to comic books, I like more of like the kind of old-fashioned, like French art.
Okay.
Oh yeah, because that's our Pats, isn't it?
That's exactly, yeah.
That's great. Yeah, because that type of comic book illustrating, traditionally you'd have the artist who inks, and then you'd have artists that would color. So it's very rare that you'd actually have the two, one artist doing both elements. So the illustrator always inks monochromatically in black and white, sends it to the colorist, and they would color it in a way that it would then work with a CMYK. You know, especially back in the day before digital, those kind of print processes, and you can see like different versions of comics that have been colored in different ways. But yeah, he's nailed the style there. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, no, he's good.
There's a newish Batman comic called Batman. Is it Brave and Bold? And it's basically Batman isn't a billionaire. I think in this day and age of like Elon Musk and stuff, it's like no one cares about, like, who cares about this billionaire. So like it's like Batman without the billionaire side of things. I think he's just like a civil engineer or something like that, and he's by himself. So if your son hasn't seen that, you should check it out because the artwork.
There's a Batmobile, something like a little higher purchase Vauxhall.
Something like that. Yeah.
Painted black, spray painted black.
Yeah,
with a burst exhaust to give the revs.
Yeah, but no, I geek out on all that kind of stuff, and actually, a lot of those labels in particular, and certain illustrations I've done for like whiskey magazines, there's a lot of film reference in there, whether it's like the color or like the composition. I mean, a lot of filmmakers look at painters for influence, and then I'm looking at filmmakers for color schemes. So actually, I don't know. Can we get the screen up?
Yeah.
I might have to change. So that's how would I switch screens? So hang on. Slick tell. Yeah, it's okay. I'll image file. There we go. See if that loads.
The ghosts. Here we go.
There we go. So that's just the illustration. That's not the label set. So yeah, the label. It's one of these wide labels that kind of wraps almost 180 degrees around the bottle. So I call it like a picture frame label. You'll have seen it with like Thompson Brothers, Redacted in Ireland. So that, you know, the artwork's got the full space to breathe rather than just being kind of squished into the middle. And this one. So this is a real staircase at Dumbarton Castle. This kind of like wonky, windy stairs that takes you up to like the top ramparts of the castle with these extreme cliff edges on either side. And then what I've done is I've put different eras of ghosts in there to kind of represent all these different sightings. So I think the guy at the front is supposed to be a little bit more of like a medieval style of ghost. He's got the chainmail and a bit of a fur cloak. A long sword, and then if you see down at the bottom left, he's actually holding a bottle of whiskey. So I try and like sneak in these little whiskey elements. And then your second ghost on like kind of the mid steps, he's a little bit more like kind of Jacobean style, I would say. And he's got like the rifle slung over his shoulder, and he's got a little like alchemy bottle of whiskey. And then back up at the top, I suppose they're not from any particular era. But yeah, you've got like a hooded ghost and a kind of woman with a lamp walking down the stairs as well. So, and then in terms of like, you know, something about like film influence, you know, John Carpenter, the Fog film, you know, there's very much in there, you know, the glowing eyes, and then the kind of extreme light in there as well. And that's what I'm drinking as well. So that's the 31-year-old Strathclyde.
Very cool.
It's such a cool label. And the picture that I say when I seen Kat's picture, and then I looked at your Instagram, and because we were in the hunt for an artist for our upcoming project as well, and I thought it's exactly what we are looking for. We've also got our own tangent on it, but yeah,
absolutely. Like we need to give it our own style and aesthetic, which I think we've settled on. So I don't know how much of this we're talking about, but I think they're going to be really nice when they're done.
Absolutely. we'll get you back on when it's all ready, and we'll do a relaunch.
Yeah. Do a recap for sure.
Cool.
100% do that.
Yeah. Right, I'll remove that from the studio and.
I was going to say what I'm drinking just now. It's another kind of great artist from Fragrant Drops and all hand drawn and things. This is the Ardmore, which is a rum cast, dark rum cast. What I love about it, and not just the label and the design, because every label is so intricate, so detailed. This is a fairly standard gin bottle, but you put on a cracking stopper and a beautiful label, and it almost just converts the whole thing into a decanter. People pick this up thinking it's like way more expensive, fancy bottle than it actually is, and it's so cool. But yeah, I thought if we're talking illustration on labels and how these bottles look pretty cool, that's what I'm drinking, and then I'm going to follow up with the other guys who take pride in their labels, slightly in a different way.
Is that the controversial label?
This is the one that got the cease and desist.
Yeah.
From Tonic Tea Cake.
All right. Why was that?
Because it looks like the Tonic Tea Cake label, and they were using the.
Okay, right.
Words. Yeah, they were basically telling people that's what it is. And it does taste like it. But that's a Strathclyde 31-year-old as well, which is a nice little
interesting
link to
it reminds me a little bit of the what was it, the Dalrye milk that came out.
Yeah.
I had that at Diggers, which is great because obviously it's just down the road from North British, but it's like the Cadbury's milk, and I was like, how on earth did they get away with that without somebody lawyering up on them? Really. It's kind of fun at the end of the day.
Is there any labels that you see and you thought, oh, I wish I'd thought of that?
Yeah, there's literally stuff that I've designed, put the idea on the shelf, and then someone else has come up with it. I'm like, oh god damn it! And it's not just like labels. It's like actual packaging design. So like one, for example, Harris. So I'm not claiming to have designed, because the Harris packaging is legendary, especially the gin, and a lot of designers and brands have fallen suit after that. But when they released the Harris whiskey in batches, they don't have an outer case. I think they were trying to be a little bit more environmentally friendly in the approach. So it's a single sheet of cardboard that like folds around the bottle and just holds it in place. And years ago, I designed that as a concept for, it wasn't for whiskey, but it was for one of these companies that produce like water to accompany whiskey. And they originally wanted like a blister pack with plastic. I was like, no, let's please not have like more plastic. We just need a way for this to hang like on a shelf with a little clip. Let's come up with this like concertinaed cardboard thing. And I spent ages like folding bits of card and drawing it out and designing it. And I hadn't done that kind of like physical engineered, like constructed packaging design before. And I came up with the idea. I thought it was great. The client didn't go for it, and it just sat on the shelf. And then like years later, Harris came up and it had like this. I was like, damn it, I thought of that. I'm sure I had.
Who was the client that you did it for? Have they got a new job with Harris?
Maybe, I don't know. Actually, it was. I don't know if these water for whiskey companies are still about. They were a bit of a thing, kind of circa 2011 and 12. I don't know.
Yeah,
still about.
The only one I see now is Larkfire.
Yeah, I think Larkfire festivals. It wasn't them. It was somebody else. I mean, I think the thing is in Scotland, you have such good quality water just out of the tap, and then you can just get like bottled water as well. That we're just like, well, hang on, why do we need that? But if you're in London or you're overseas and you know the water isn't great, you know, it probably makes a bit more sense to have a specific water for your whiskey. But yeah, it's, you know, concepts and stuff like that. Who knows where your ideas come from? And I'm inspired by people. Maybe people get inspired by me if they ever see my work. It's you can't be too protective over ideas, I guess. And there's a lot of collaboration as well. You know, when I first started doing some design work, I was the brand manager and I was hiring creative agencies, and they were obviously doing the bulk of the work and they had all the expertise, but I would like thread in a little idea. So, but then you can't really say where your idea started and theirs, or your idea stopped and theirs started. It's all collaboration. So yeah, it's just the way it is.
I love the wee drawing you did of Megan and Woody for Woodrose. That was so good.
Well, they invited me along to one of their tastings at Diggers, and I was like, why invite me? You don't need to. So I thought it'd be nice to do a little drawing for them. So I've been doing a series of like isometric vehicle drawings. I don't know if you can get the share screen up. I could probably show you some of those.
Yeah.
I had made the connection that it was you until Paul was like, yeah, no, that was the same guy that drew Megan and Woody's picture that you were talking about. Like,
yeah, it's slightly different style to your label, Kat. Have you got that on the screen?
Yeah.
So these isometric is basically, it means only a 2-point perspective. So if you introduced a third perspective, it would mean it would get smaller the further away an element of the image it gets. So these isometrics, it's just got a certain aesthetic that I really like. It's really cute. It was a practical reason. Fife Whisky Festival, Justine invited me along, and she was like, Stephen, you don't have any like Lowlands distillery drawings. I was like, I've only got a week to go, and my distillery drawings usually take like 100 hours. So I was like, oh, well, I'll do some isometrics, and I can knock those out within like 20 hours. So I did an isometric of Lindors and Daft Mill. Really liked the style. So I just started playing around with it a little bit more, and it's in some of my other work, but I like doing these little vehicles. And the idea is, if I'm at a market or something like that, you can have them as stickers or little postcards. So they're only a couple of quid and people can pick their favorite. And just, I guess, my lack of inspiration, most of them are alcohol based. So you've got that's Woody. That's Woody and Megan's there. So that's their van. And I'm sure you know Megan. She does like powerlifting and she's pretty damn strong. So I've got her lifting the barrel at the back. And then, like, I don't know what I'm saying here about Woody, whether he's being lazy and just hard work. But he's up on top, just rolling a cigarette.
That would make such a cool little pin badge if you could get that in a pin badge.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know how it would probably be on the larger size of a hard enamel pin badge, but probably could get it done. And then
iron-on badge, like school. Do you remember you had your iron-on badges for your school bag? Oh, let's bring them back. Let's do iron.
Yeah, like it's actually like a material, like a woven
yes.
type. Possibly, could do. I mean, the printers I use is actually on the same street as Woody's. So what I do now is I actually volunteer at a local printers in Edinburgh, and I do like all my own like color correction, printing. I hand cut everything and pack it all myself. So I just take like that extra step, and it's just a lovely way of, I was working in the whiskey industry, so I wasn't really that ingratiated into the art scene or design scene in Scotland and in Edinburgh. So working with Bear Branding is a really good way of like getting to know people. And, you get artists coming in and they're stuck on a problem and I might know a solution or they help me out. And it's just a lovely kind of collaborative nature of it. Good way to work and to get to know people. But so that's Jane Street, and I associate Jane Street with Woodrose and his like racked warehouse system.
Yeah, and I was there 4 weeks ago, or 3-4 weeks ago. I think I was down visiting them in their warehouse, which is just, it was so unassuming. Like I got the general directions, and I was like, "Am I in the right place?" I was like, kind of just wandering around in Leith, and then they turned up, and I was like, "Oh no, I am in the right place." But just a very unassuming kind of back street in Leith somewhere.
Yeah, just an industrial unit. But I actually took some clients there on the weekends. I do like private tours, and we took 3 clients. They'd been to like Glenkinchie and Johnny Walker and Portaleaf, so lots of different styles of distilleries and polish and presentation. And then took them along to Jane Street. And like, what are we doing here? And then you go in and they've got, I probably shouldn't say what they've got in case anyone tries breaking in or something, but they've got some fantastic stuff in there. And I think Edinburgh, Mike, you've got the fragrant drops there from George and Rachel. Edinburgh's got this great little scene of independent bottlers just now for the last couple of years. Tricara, I would put into the mix there. Woody's, as we mentioned, and then I don't know if you've had any Blind Summit. So I did some labels for Blind Summit, and that's That's Jamie Dawson, who runs a retailer in Edinburgh called Cork and Cask. And then James Zorab, who's ex-Scotch Malt Whisky Society, and he works for Lowland Bond. And they just, as like a side project, just do a couple of small outturns a year and release whiskey mainly to give to their mates who are in the license trade and in the restaurant trade. So yeah, there's just this lovely, like, thriving independent bottlers scene in Edinburgh. It's nice to support and drink and some tenuous way be a part of, I suppose.
Yeah,
it's so cool that, like, Leith's been revived in terms of whiskey because it's so historic. You know, we've referenced Justine quite a bit as well, and you know, you walk down through Leith and you see these amazing old buildings and stuff, and like the history behind that is insane. But I have the next label for you with Woody. So Megan sent me a photograph the other night. Woody's not a fan of Glengarry. He's very openly not a fan of Glengarry. I think he does it to wind me up as well because he's a dick.
Yeah, he can be quite opinionated at times. He won't shy away from it.
We love him, but he bid on a bottle of Glengarry the other night and won it. So Megan took a photograph and sent it to me. So I'm like, I'm having that on a t-shirt, but I'm going to get you to make a bloody label. Woody says Glengarry's nae pish.
Yeah, I was going to say, it has to be the no pish, isn't it?
Yeah, I find that surprising with, like, independents, because you never know with a whiskey, especially when it's independently bottled and you put it into a different cask type. You know, I for years, you know, I like most whiskeys, but I could never get behind Inchgower. Like, Inchgower, I think, just tasted like sand. It was just so dry. And as a blender, I get why it works, because if you're blending a whiskey and it ends up a bit too saccharine, a bit too sweet and heavy, you just chuck in a bit of Inchgower and it will help, like, dry it out and give a bit of balance. But to taste it neat, I never got behind it. But then, I'm drawing a blank, but I had one recently from somebody, and they put it into like a sauternes or dessert wine cask, and it was fantastic. So yeah, I think never say never with distilleries, because even if you don't like it,
he likes to weigh me up a little bit. That's
yeah.
But yeah, no, very cool.
Does everyone getting a creepy Brum kind of vibe off the car on the right?
Creepy Brum.
What do you mean by Brum? Like Brum?
Like, he'll be too young for a Brum reference. Like, Brum
is coming back. Brum's coming back.
Yeah,
I have no idea. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Do you know?
No.
So Brum was like a car. It was like a friendly Christine kind of idea where you would just drive around and make friends with kids. And stuff.
Right. Okay.
Let me see if I can find a picture of Brum.
Remember Chitty Chitty Bang Bang? And then there was
was so creepy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a creepy film. And then, yeah, was there not like a race car one? And it had like eyes.
Yeah, Brum was a bit creepy too.
Yeah, that's it. I do remember that. Yeah.
He would drive out of the museum, wouldn't he? And they'd go like wander around and then go back.
Transport museum and go.
I think it's one of those.
Back in.
Yeah, if I skipped school and like the kids programs that came on a bit too late in the morning, that no kids should really be watching them. It was something like that one would always be on, and like Captain Caveman or whatever it was. Like, yeah, these kind of weird cartoons. I think it was like it just didn't emote very much. I think his eyes just moved left to right, and that was about it. So it just always looked a bit creepy. Yeah, so I mean that one. That's actually not whiskey related. That was just like a cool, like, old wooden like vintage caravan in the States. So it's got nothing to do with whiskey, but then I actually put Gaelic for welcome on the map there. Yeah, it was that was purely just one I like to draw, like, you know, like tin roofs and wooden planks and, you know, stuff that aesthetically, you know, if you see it in real life, probably isn't that beautiful, but it's quite fun to draw. And
I can see how it would work with a distillery, you know, looking at that roof track.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. Maybe I should say it is. It's got a little whiskey still inside. I could say it's like a moonshine.
It's got the frontage of the Glengarry Stillhouse almost, doesn't it?
I mean, all right.
I mean, it's more. I'd say it's more Abenjerrig. You know, it's got a kind of like Marco vibe to it. I mean, that's the most remote place I've cycled to distillery wise, and that
wow, we did well getting there. Dutch Stewards referenced it. Oh no, sorry, go on.
No, I was saying I cycled from Stornoway to Abingerrig, Uig Sands on like the west of Lewis, and I must have had like a 30-mile headwind the whole time, so it took me 3 times longer to get there than I'd planned, and I was absolutely knackered. And it was tier 0, like coming out of COVID, so you could have like small groups at places, and I turned up at Abingerrig. And I was like, oh yeah, is it possible to get on like the 1 o'clock tour? And they're like, oh, I'm really sorry. We've got 6 people on it, and like that's just sold out for the day. It's like, oh, okay, fine. Like got on my bike, started to leave, and they're like, did you just cycle here? I was like, yeah. And it's like, that's fine. You can come on the tour. So like, you get a lot of like instant goodwill, not from drivers. Drivers want you dead, but people when they see that you've cycled there, you get a lot of leeway. And that's
so what you do is you drive as close as you can to the distillery, park up, take your car out of the boot, and just cycle the last corner. I've cycled all this way.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I'm planning to get into Brora, and that distillery is fantastic. I think that's, I'd been to Harris a couple of days before, and that's, quite slick and a bit more contemporary. But Abingerrig is probably, it must be the closest thing to what a distillery, how it operated like 150 years ago. And he like welded those stills himself. He's like a scrap metal worker, and I think he was a moonshiner back in the day as well. So he's one of the few like Scottish moonshiners. And he said himself he did like pretty much the bare minimum. I hope I'm not doing him any disservice here, but he said he did like the bare minimum to get like his like commissioning of the stills from the HMRC visit, and then just no one's ever been back to check on it, like 10 years later. And it's amazing, it's like hand built, like worm tubs, witchy stills at like jaunty tight angles. And I just loved it. He was walking around with a mug of tea. And like we went to like his malting floor, and his malting floor was just like a couple of metal, I don't know if they were maybe like horse troughs or something like that you'd like engineered to be slightly wider, and it had like what like your granny's fire underneath, so it's like the heat source that he was chucking in like peats, and he was just drinking his tea, and he just stuck the mug down like in like the kilned barley, then picked it up, and it was just like the kilned barley just falling off the bottom of his cup. And he wasn't even meant to do the tour. There was like a local lad who was going to do the tour, but the community shop had run out of bottles. So she had to go and bottle 6 bottles for the community shop. So they don't bottle cask out. They don't empty an entire cask. They just have the cask sat there. They pour them into like plastic jugs. And then honestly, I've seen homebrew setups that are more sophisticated. She had her lunch. As she was bottling, she literally had like a sandwich and a Coca-Cola like next to her. And no calculator. So they had like bottled at cask strength in like maybe the square bottle, and then the round bottle would be cut down to 46%. So what she'd do is she'd get the hydrometer, find the ABV, and then there was this old dusty book that had like temperature versus ABV at the milliliter, and that would give you an output of how much water you needed to put in there to blend it down to 46%. And she had a ruler, and she was just moving the ruler down the book to find the exact like where it all aligned up, and then that would give her an output of like 356 mil or something like that, and then she'd pour it into the plastic jug, and then that would go into the bottles. And I was just like, I can't believe this is how like people are bottling whiskey in like 2022, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like that's the process. It works. And then
probably
I was like,
how they were doing it in 1822, so why not?
Yeah, and I was like to Marco, I was like, but surely like the first bottles that come out of the cask, like a year later, you might be finishing the cask. The whiskey bottles they'll taste different because it's been in the cask longer. There's more air that's been introduced. It'll be different. And he's like, yeah, so what? And it just kind of broke my brain because I was so used to like consistency and all the whiskey's got to taste the same if it's coming out of the one cask, but he just operates a completely different model up there. But yeah, it's just very ramshackle and old school, and I suppose that drawing, maybe reminds me of that a little bit.
That's very cool. I'd love to go and see it. I haven't done the Outer Hebrides. I need to go and do some of the Outer Hebrides. It'd be very, very cool to see.
It's very beautiful. I'm up there once or twice a year, and I absolutely love it. And it's almost becoming its own little sub-region for whiskey now. So you've
They're
got
adding the island cruise, aren't they? The island distillery cruises are kicking up, are taking off now.
right. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
logistically, it's challenging for like a festival. I don't know how you'd
Yeah.
run it, but a cruise is a good idea because you've got the distillery on Barra. There's North US Distillery, which is now technically in Benbecula, which is quite confusing. And then I think there's 2 new distilleries in South US, but the names escape me right now. And then Harris and Abenjerrig. I'm sure there's a few more as well.
That's amazing. And it's like, and we've had the Tyree guys on a couple of times, and it's just, I love the idea of like bringing with like distillation back to these places, because you know a lot of them are agricultural based economies, so distillation probably happened there. I mean, barley growing is maybe not that easy out to Hebrides, but it would have maybe happened in small proportions, and in good growing years excess probably would have been used for distillation purposes, because everybody was making cure-alls, you know, they're making ushkave for tonics, for, you know, restoratives and for booze. So to bring that knowledge back to there to Hebrides, I think is absolutely fantastic.
Are the Tyree boys, have they got whiskey yet? I remember them when they had gin, because they're the musicians, aren't they?
They are. They're Trail West, but we had Alan and so I had Alan on originally before they had whiskey released, right? And then we had Alan and Ian on after the inaugural. Their inaugural whiskey was this year, right? At the start of this year? It was like January this year, I think they launched their first whiskey. Right. And then
time flies. I just lose track of these things, and suddenly it's like, oh yeah, you got whiskey.
Yeah, and then they're very similar. So everything's done on Ian's dad's farm. So, like, you know, they've got like a sort of mini kind of washback and like sort of mash tun, like with this, it's like a big kind of tea bag, like a sort of bag that they just put stuff in and throw water and stuff. It's like all very, very small scale. But yeah,
so cool.
Exciting. It is very cool. And then Ian got bitten by a cat live on air, so like it was one of our it was a good blether. And we have missed so many questions for you because your chat's been awesome, but I've seen there's a couple of questions we should probably go back to.
I go on random tangents.
No, you're all good. There's so much, and we've had a few new people join the chat since then as well. We've got Sandro back. We haven't seen Sandro in ages. Buenos Aires, Sandro. Where have you been? I'm going to let Mike scroll back up because my son has bollocked my computer and the mouse pad doesn't work anymore. So it's literally doing nothing. So you're going to have to scroll back up and read the questions, Mike.
The one I was going to touch on it is quite apt to what we're just talking about and how kind of rickshaw Avengerag is. But Ben Marnick is asking about what do you think of going up to the other end of the scale about some of the more outrageous designs, and you know, these certainly the ones that Ben's mentioning is the upcoming 1-of-1 auctions for Hopetoun House. Some of these bottle designs are like more expensive than the whiskey themselves. What are your thoughts on that?
I was actually lucky enough to go to the Worshipful Fellowship dinner, which is like the charity associated with that, and chat to the people who work on those projects. And I mean, the whiskeys, they're obviously like insane, you know, they're kind of hyper luxury 1-of-1s, the price points. So I could see why some people might be a little bit jaded in terms of like, oh, they're so expensive and unobtainable, like what actually are the whiskey? But as a designer, I think it shifts the Overton window, and it's like this, we talk about like trickle down aesthetics. So some of them are actually quite plain. You know, they use the standard bottle and maybe put a nice label on it and a cork or something like that. But then other ones, I think this year was at the Glenlivet, and it's that really odd kind of twisted shape. And you know, the Lefroy pill, I think as they called it, was quite controversial. But these are conversation starters, and what they're doing is, I think because it's all for charity. So I don't know, maybe it's like a tax write-off for the brands, but what they get to do is some really out there new product development and test and try out some really cool ideas and shift that Overton window. And that then may potentially in some way filter down into kind of packaging design at a less premium level. So I really enjoy seeing them and looking at them. I mean, I'll probably never try any of the whiskey in there because, you know, who will? But purely on design, I like the kind of pioneering work that's going there. And it's charity, it's raising money, it's a good cause.
They'll be able to claim a lot of R&D back on that kind of stuff, won't they?
Yeah. And I don't get to do glass design as much as I used to. So when I worked for Weems and Kingsbarns, and it's important for me to say I didn't design those bottles. I worked with a creative agency called Breeze Creative, which is a one-man band. It's a very talented guy called Craig McKinley, and he did like the designs, but we constantly like talked back and forth and really kept pushing it. So we ended up with Kingsbarns. It was inspired. So much is inspired by Harris, because that swirling bottle of the gin, and it was really like you could draw a line in bottle design. When the Harris gin came out, all of a sudden everybody wanted these like tactile glass bottles that tell a story. And before that, it was more about like really decorative labels. And suddenly everybody wanted a custom glass bottle with tactile elements. So we integrated that into Kingsbarns. We put like the ducat squares at the bottom of the bottle to give it that tactility. And then I added the pigeons on the shoulder. And as an animator, if you actually stitch those 6 pigeons together, they would flap their wings. So I quite like that. But yeah, that, you know, those tactile pattern designs, that was inspired by high-end glassware. And I think Harris, they were inspired by beachcombers who were like going and picking up warped bits of glass that had been shaped by the sea. So, you know, you need to pull your inspiration from somewhere other than just the whiskey industry. If everybody's just looking at themselves, you're just going to end up copying, or it's kind of like a death loop. Nothing new's getting introduced into the system. So having really high end products like the one of ones, or looking at like high end art or glass sculptors or something like that, it's bringing something new into the mix that will inspire the design. And some people just don't care. Like they say they don't care. They just want their whiskey. You know, they buy the whiskey for the whiskey. But I think to a certain level, everybody, you know, it's whether they think they're not being marketed to by having it in a very plain bottle, or they want like the glamour or the secondary packaging because they're gifting it or whatever. You know, they all tell a story in their own way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm a sucker for a nice bottle.
Yeah.
We find in the shop more people are open to admit it if they're looking for a gin or a wine than they are looking for a whiskey. And I don't know why that is, but somebody comes in looking for maybe it's, I mean, the wine world it's a warrant to me that there's so much going on there. And maybe it is just the fact that it's so complex and complicated if you don't know enough about it, that a nice bottle is your selling point.
I'm like that with cigars. Like I've only got so much bandwidth and I have a terrible memory. So like I just don't have the time to learn about cigars in depth. So when I'm going and buying cigars, I get persuaded by fancy looking bands on the cigars.
Nice.
You know? Yeah, it looks nice, and you're in. You know,
100%. There is an element of it in everything, and the other one is the color of the whiskey, isn't it? We all say don't look at the color. Whiskey's not influencing it, but as soon as you pick it up, look at the color of that.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, I do the opposite. The darker it is, the more I'm going to leave it on the shelf. I think the thing about whiskey as well, though, is because it is a luxury item. Like, none of us actually need whiskey. I mean, like, we want it, but none of us, like, you know, out of, like, you know, things you need to survive in life, you know, food and water, like, it is a luxury item. So, I like the fact that it ties in with things like art and music and film and design, because they're all luxury things we don't need in life. They enhance our life, they make our life better. They're interests, they're passions, they're, you know, things you want to know more about, things you want to look at and have around us. So I mean, it makes sense to me that there should be a space for whiskey in among things like, you know, art, design, poetry, music, luxury. So
nice cars.
Say again?
Nice cars, but your Aston Martins and these kind of things.
I know. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I do get it. Like the fact that alcohol and driving legally are not bedfellows, right? I get it. But luxury motor owning, I guess, is a different ballpark. Like, you know, the two things I'm not going to get drawn into are football and cars. Like, you know, I don't even know my car's number plate. I'm not I'm not an aficionado on cars, but I get the beauty of them. So like I do see why there's a place for that as well, you know. And I think the Distiller 101, it's like you touched on it before. I had to nip away quickly to go and find some more masking tape for my son, but it's for a good cause. It raises so much money for such a good cause, and the fact that distilleries don't just hand over something old and say, yeah, it's like what 50 years old. The fact they actually create something beautiful so that people are going to be re-engaged every single year and want to participate in that auction. Yeah, I just think there's definitely a place for that, to be honest.
Yeah, they've
So
definitely
I love
found
it.
themselves a niche where, the brands get to explore something really creative and then they raise a huge amount of money. I can't remember how much they raised this year, but the figure I heard before is that organization, before they did the one of ones, they would only raise about £50,000 a year for charity. And they'll raise that amount with just one bottling.
One bottle, yeah. But
Yeah, so
I'm just going to say, so in the limelight that's now on them because of this is that it's not just the auction, but everything else is kind of raised it. You know, they're raising money through other avenues as well because of that. Now people kind of recognise it and know what they're doing.
yeah. And you know, you've got Ian here saying that the Old Pulteney 101 is a really, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, and I've seen so much of it covered over socials because it is so beautiful. And Pulteney is not a whiskey that we all sing and dance about a lot of the time, out of like, you know, out of the range of their sister and brother competitors. Like, you know, it's not a big name, but the fact we've all seen this amazing whiskey that we don't actually shout about that much in this beautiful conceptual art design, it's making us all look at Pulteney and be like, yeah, like Pulteney. I can, yeah. So the fact that it does, it reimagines a whiskey or like kind of like changes our perception of it. Like, yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
Yeah, the conversation points, and it shifts things. I mean, nowhere to that kind of level of execution. But I remember when Aaron rebranded, and when Aaron rebranded at first, I was like, I was like, I don't know do I like this? Do I not? I don't really get it. And it took it's like when you hear like a band you really like an album, and you're just like, oh, I'm not sure of this, and you got to give it a couple of listens, and then it grows on you. And then I kind of looked at the wider context of Aaron, and you know, they had like the 2-part label where you got like the Aaron single malt on top, and then the color on the footer, and each color was a different expression within the portfolio. But then like 20 other distilleries had that, and I'm not saying Aaron started it. It just became like common vocabulary on labels, is you had basic label stuff on top, expression on bottom. And they were just like, well, we're not going to do that anymore. And they went for this very clean, simple, kind of earthy aesthetic. And you can see it fitting like
pastel kind of.
Yeah, it's not a supermarket whiskey. It goes in independent bottle shops and nice bars and boutique hotels. It totally fits what that product is and who it's for, in my opinion, anyway. And I really love that design now.
What's been your favourite rebrand of recent times? Because from Aaron onwards, we've had quite a few with Glendronach, Benriach, Benromic, Glenglasser.
Yeah, I like the Glenlasser. Again, it's very Harris. You know, it's those like swirls and lines.
Harris fairly raised the game with that gin bottle, didn't they?
Yeah, I believe that was Stranger and Stranger, a design agency and a very famous design agency. One for their designs, two for just how expensive they bloody are. But they do some fantastic stuff, and I think with the Harris, as I said already, it kind of set a trend. So the Glenlasser I really like. The Benriach's quite simple, but I think it's executed really well. It reminds me a bit of a Benramac, which somebody told me looks like a Soviet whiskey. Once the kind of the red on there as well. It's quite nice. The Glendronach,
I've not thought of that, but yeah.
The Glendronach, I think, is subtle. It looks really nice, and it's got that kind of angular, simple bottle shape. And then there's just the subtle little changes I think are interesting. So, like a brand like Lefroy, you know, they've tweaked around the edges on the label. And then they've ditched the tube for environmental reasons, and they've gone for a crash lock carton that I think has an element of recycled paper in there. God, I think of the heritage of Lefroy and like the brand managers and having to approach that as a project. I'd be terrified because of what people associate and the history of that brand.
Yeah.
So I think they actually were very respectful in what they did to kind of update it. So there's ones that they don't. It doesn't have to be a completely like garish or like resetting of everything. It can sometimes just be a little subtle twist. I won't talk about Highland Park.
They've had the most rebrands since we opened the shop.
Yeah, and then the other one, I mean, just subtle ones like Kilhoman. So like Kilhoman had the heavier bottle mold, and I haven't spoken to any of the Wills about this, but when you do a custom bottle mold, it has a shelf life. So these glass 2-part glass bottle molds will typically only last about 10 to 15 years, depending on how many times you use them. So that kind of ties in with the runtime of that distillery. So that bottle mold, I assume, I'm completely guessing here, but based off of my experience, that mold probably ran to the end of its life. And what they've done is they've gone for a similar shape, but it's a slightly thinner, smaller bottle. So they've dropped the overall weight of the glass. So again, it's a bit more environmentally friendly on the materials, the weight for shipping. And then they've just tweaked the designs a little bit. They've got a really cool designer that works with them. And yeah, they've just started introducing like big, bold text and stark colors, and again, it's just a subtle tweaking of the edges. But I think
a little bit of a cleanup, isn't it? Just
I think it's one of the cast strengths, and they put like a bull in the background somewhere, and it just it looks really, really smart the way they've done it. And I love when
I've got a bottle of that here somewhere. The Sineig cast strength has got that.
Yeah, and they've tweaked the recipe on the new Sineig. So I don't know if they've upped the sherry, but that thing's it's almost as dark as a Loch Gorm now. It's beautiful whiskey as well as lovely packaging.
And it's such a busy space, though, isn't it? Like if you're starting out, like that sort of journey down, like what's your brand image, what's your then how do you translate that into glass, how do you translate it into labels, wording, like brand story, concept, boxes. Like I find it really interesting, but yeah, I wouldn't even know where to begin in that process. And like sometimes I hear a story and I'm like, wow, like that's amazing that they've done that, and other times I'm like, meh. We could have maybe done something, but but yeah, I love it. I love that whole side of it. I just think, and that's why I'm a sucker for a nice bottle, because I love that whole tie-in, because it is a romanticism too, but we all have our own stories. And the fact you can carve your kind of own niche out by just weaving that story through every part of the bottle, from, the production right through to, the packaging. Like, because I do think it's important, like you say this all the time, Mike, no matter how many times you try and talk about the liquid, sometimes it is just that moment of, I want a nice gift, and like I just want something impactful. I just want to pick something off the shelf. I don't need to know about fermentation times and the fact the master blender's got 30 years in the industry. This just looks nice. And like if you're spending 50, 60, 70 more this year for certain, that that's like that matters to people. That's a hard-earned cash. So I totally value that. I mean, I do see value in a nice conceptual, like nice concept, nice box, nice glass.
And we're kind of talking about it, we're all in Scotland, and we will have a Scottish UK perspective and understanding of it. But the bulk of whiskey isn't consumed and sold here.
That's true.
It's overseas. And each market, each country has their own different idea. We were talking about cash strength before. In France, we always had to bottle at 46% because the independents didn't want cash strength whiskey, and they didn't want to add water. But then in terms of aesthetics, Taiwan, when I worked for Weems, they found our labels on the original Weems malts bottles just a bit too plain. And at a certain point, I take that on board. So what they would do is they would import in the single casks. They would take the back label off, so they still had the mandatory minimums on the front, and they would hire an in-country designer to put like a dragon or a samurai warrior, or like there was one with loads of roses on it, and they would put that on the back, and they would tweak the ABV within the 0.3 decimal point allocation that you're allowed at tolerance. And I remember going on Whiskey Base. I was like, I remember that Bunnahabhain, but now there is another Bunnahabhain with that's 46.2 instead of 46.5% in alcohol, and they would fabricate essentially a new whiskey for like a customer exclusive with this new label on the back. And when we were trying to like hold their feet to the fire on this, because technically they haven't done anything illegal, and it's still the whiskey. And their excuse was, your labels are too plain, we need to update them. And that's when we ended up, when we did Weems rebrands. I mean, I've seen feedback, like some people find them too garish, but that's on like a UK perspective. Like you've got to think of this in like where a lot of it sells. It's selling out in Taiwan and China, and they want the foils and the illustrations. And even I had a whiskey shop on the Royal Mile for a short period of time up in Castle Hill, and I remember like you'd get Chinese tourists coming in, and the top 2 selling bottles were Highland Park and Signatory Cash Strength, and it was because they had the biggest cork stoppers. So just like me with my illustrated, bands on my cigars, they were going around looking at bottles, and I'm generalizing, but yeah, they were turning them over, and the ones with the big cork stoppers was a sign of quality. So those were typically the ones that would sell more. So just different markets respond and react to different things. But then and that's where you see market exclusive releases. But by and large, you want a brand identity that kind of looks the same, whether you're selling it, up at your shop or a Japanese whiskey festival.
Yeah, I hadn't really considered that fully either, actually. But you're right, because you see travel retail exclusives, and like it's almost like the same animal, but like sort of winter coat on. It's like, oh yeah, I can recognize it, but like it's obviously been like sexed up for the airport a little bit. But
yeah,
the
Macallan are very good at doing that, aren't they? The airport exclusives are completely different. The bottle's the same, but the outer packaging isn't. That's something we can ask guys like Sandro and Rick, who's on, Frank, if you're still watching, from European or American side of things. When you're looking at Scotch whiskey, do you like the fact that some distilleries, we'll use Glengarry as an example, have that little bit of Scottish twee kind of custom in there, or do you like something that's a little bit maybe more modern? Like, it's one of their more modern. Inchdarney is quite a very.
It's very modern,
caution or something like that. Very
maybe steampunk. It's just very laboratory kind of engineering aesthetic to it, isn't it? But yeah, that bottle I've not tried the malts yet, but I love the rye law from a couple of years ago. That rye release was superb.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what you guys think. So Steve, talking about that, what would you rather take on a project that is a redesign of something like Laphroaig, or start a new project from scratch? So
that's a
take
good question.
An Inchdarney, for example.
That's really interesting. I don't think I've ever actually done from scratch of a full brand, because even like Kingsbarns, for example, when I came on board in 2014, there was no whiskey, but the visitor centre had been up and running for 2 or 3 years. So there was already a bit of a brand identity there of like colours and fonts. So even when it came to working on the whiskey, we weren't going to rebrand everything. We were going to take the signs down at the distillery. So we used that as a jumping off point. So yeah, I've never started from scratch. So I would probably say starting from scratch, just because I've never done it before. It's a little bit more daunting, but then there's a lot of foundational work that needs to be done there with the brand. So it actually, a lot of that work is Q&A sessions and crits. And, you were saying, Kat, like, where do you start? And a lot of times I think people find it hard to say what they want to be, but they don't find it very hard to say what they don't want to be.
Yeah.
You can actually start there by like tone, or like, I don't like this brand. Why is it you don't like it? Or I don't want to be this or that. It's not genuine, or it's not what we are. And then you just look at the antonym of that, and then you work through from there. And that
I don't want to look shit. Okay.
Well, there we go. I mean, that one's a bit vague, but yeah. Yeah, so then I want to look unshit. But yeah, that's a good jumping off point. And it's tricky because a lot of brands, they just start and they hit the ground running, and they haven't had time or the money, especially if it's a smaller company, to do like brand exercises and like, what's my mission statement and my brand statement and what are my brand pillars. So like, and some people will be like, well, I don't need that. But actually, I think it's quite important to do some of those brands exercises early on, because what you should get out of those exercises is this little, like, you know, just a couple of pages, a mission statement, and that's the tip of your spear. That's everything comes back to that original messaging and idea. And when you're suddenly in September and you've got 5 whiskey shows in 1 week and customer orders and something's going wrong in the bottling hall and a million things are going on at once, you should always be able to take a breath and slow down and go back to those original mission statements and be like, right, this is what we're about. Is everything we're doing working to this common goal, be it the design, be it our activity, who our customers are, how we're engaging with our consumers. You know, all of it's important. And some people will just be like, oh, that's just marketing wankery. But if you actually change that, if you remarket marketing wankery and just call it customer communication, it's just the communication of what you do. You know, I think that kind of takes the edge off a little bit, but maybe I'm sounding a little bit slimy there. But nobody likes to admit they've been marketed to, but you got to tell your story. And the cool thing about whiskey is, you know, whiskey's awesome. You just tell the story of what you do and people engage with it. Like, I don't think I could ever market or design, like, I don't know, packaging for a vacuum cleaner. Just bore the crap out of me. Like, we've got an amazing, you know, an amazing product here. And once you just tell a good, authentic story in a certain way, be it in like the way you write about it or present yourself or the way the packaging looks, like people engage with it.
100%. I think there's so much value in being honest about a story as well, you know, and just because, like, you know, like I say this all the time, like, you know, our like guides at distillery are like you're kind of on the ground brand ambassadors. You're creating your next generation brand ambassadors, and to have a good guide who can tell a story well and create that engagement, and then kind of make people feel like, you know, that they've kind of found their new favorite whiskey like this. It's so important, and everyone is doing something different, from your founder story to your terroir to your water to your, you know, your that member staff that's been there for 40 years and does warehouse tours. Like, everyone's got this little wee niche. Like, I literally found out the other day that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this so much. So I went over to go and speak to the distillery manager. We have a weekly meeting, and he stood outside his office. And I was like, you all right? He's like, aye, I'm just watching the Swifts. And I was like, right, okay. So like, Mike, you know, our old distillery manager. So Cornelli, our old distillery manager, was always trying to offload the Swift lady on me. I'm like, no, just like, no, like, I don't have time. Like, I don't understand. But I finally got to the bottom of it this week. And this lady comes every single year to watch the Swifts come back, because Swifts are on the critically endangered list in Scotland. And Swifts will always come back to the same place. Like, and if they can't get in, they will kill themselves trying to get in. So they'll spend about 4 or 5 days trying to get back into their original nests, and they'll exhaust themselves. So our distillery, unbeknown to me, over the last 200 odd years, or more so recently, and because we've obviously gone through refurbishment.
An old Swift.
Say again?
That's an old Swift.
That's, I know, right? Yeah, he survived it. But like, we haven't touched our pagodas at all, and we don't put up any ladders or netting or any sort of industrial stuff to make sure the Swifts can get back every single year. So like, for over and the lady did say that the Swifts are probably coming to our distillery and it's for its entirety, its whole life, because they haven't got any natural trees or cover, like sort of natural habitat. So the fact that these Swifts have been visiting our distillery for over 200 years, like, I'm like, put that on a fucking bottle. That's amazing. Because of course the Swifts, because we were built by farmers, Swifts tie into the farming calendar, and farmers always know that spring's come back, the Swifts return. Like, that whole concept is absolutely beautiful. I'm like, it's these small little moments, these little nuggets that you find. You're like, it just makes up the bigger picture of a place. You know, you're trying to sort of hone down 200 years of history. So yeah, little moments like that.
That's the kind of thing I can imagine.
Actually.
That was going to say, that's the kind of thing I can imagine popping up in a boutique label.
100%, because they're always putting bloody tomatoes on it, and I do love that. That's the other geeky thing about Whisky is the tomatoes. I do love that we get tomatoes all the time, but let's get the Swifts on the go too. Like, what a beautiful story that is.
Love it. It's lovely, and like it's because whiskey distilleries are a part of a community. I mean, a lot of them were how communities started. You know, the farms and the towns literally grew up around them. You know, if you have like Auburn and Bowmore and things like that. So it's important to keep that alive and tell those stories. It doesn't always just have to be purely about the liquid in the glass. You know, let people know what's going on and what that whiskey is a product of that whole area. And what's that about? Sorry, I'm just rambling now, but I think it's a good idea.
No, I'm totally behind that though. Like, there's just because.
Sorry, go on.
No, it's the same vein. It's, you know, like a lot of these villages and places and, you know, communities are there because of the distilleries. Like, there's so much part of our social history, and like I think it was Billy Walker that kind of said that we're all custodians of these places, and that sort of custodianship is so much more. It's people's livelihoods. It's people that have worked there their whole life. It's the third generation family that have been there their whole days. It's, you know, like the railways that were put in because of the distillery. There's so much around about these places. So they're much bigger than the liquid that we have in our glasses. And the more you delve into that, you know, the more interesting it is. I never get bored of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Same.
So to put that on a bloody label, you're doing well, because I couldn't. My labels would be so busy. I'd have like somebody growing tomatoes, some wee birdies, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose the challenge, I mean, the indie bottlers, just by their nature, can be a little bit more fast and loose. They don't have as many kind of like boundaries put up in terms of like kind of brand restrictions. And, you know, think of Boutique, for example, every single label is different. They've got that format there that, you know, a new illustration has to be introduced, whereas something like Glengarry, it's got the locked in, you know, it's got the same cutters to fit the bottle, it's got that brand identity that, like, how you could just take off the label and put on, you know, some drawing of Swifts or you know, some photography of them or something like that, but it would be really, really jarring. So you've got to go about it in a lot more kind of careful, respectful way that ties in with it. You know, is it secondary packaging? Is it collaboration in a certain way? Is it just a small little icon illustration? You know, there's ways of doing it, and it just depends on the type of whiskey brand, really, about how you achieve it.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very, very cool. I love
stick some feathers on that, you know, just glue some feathers on the side of it.
I'm going to get my bottle of Glengarry and just stick some feathers on it.
But tomato on the top.
I'll be like, give me a pay rise, folks.
One of the most important questions I'm going to have to ask you, Stephen, talking on brands, Alan Smith has asked us, what mark out of 10 would Stephen give for the Blether logo?
Well, I sense that when you did that AI octopus, it probably wasn't the first time you did AI.
I paid a lot of money for that little glass.
Yeah. I give the AI 10 out of 10.
I think Mark Watt, when he designed the so before Mark Watt came on, so I very famously accidentally say inappropriate things at regular basis. And before Mark came on the Blether, he's like, tonight's gonna be a night when we get a catism. I'm like, I am not performing monkey. I will not participate in this. And within about 5 minutes, I announced that I was an erotic onion. So he drew this little AI onion in a feather boa. And then Callum made it into a mug for us. So I almost feel like the Blether icon is a little erotic onion, to be honest. But he did that.
Do you know how many prompts I had to give for that whiskey glass? To one, not have any ice in it, and two, to actually look like a whiskey glass.
Do you have to write, make it look like a whiskey glass, please? So that should be.
That's not enough. It is all I wanted was a glass with swirling whiskey in it, and it was like ridiculous amount of wrong stuff it threw out. It's like,
if you want to have some fun, and maybe the AI models have improved recently, but ask it to do a photo of a whiskey glass full to the brim, and it can't do it because it's a learning model. It's just copying from what else is out there. And how many photos are there of a whiskey glass full to the brim?
Yeah.
Now, it might have changed because it's been a long time since I did this, and there was a YouTuber who was doing it with wine glasses. So maybe you do it now and it just works. But last year, I remember there was a whole little like internet kind of meme about it, and people were trying to ask it to do a wine glass or a drinks glass full to the brim, and it would just do a wine glass like half full, and they'd be like, you'd message it back being like, that's not full to the brim, is it? And they're like, no, you're right, let me try again. And it would do it again, and it would just be like, sometimes it'd be like splashing over the side, or like kind of break it, but it's just one of these things that it can't actually do, because it's not mind. It's just taking all of the information that's out there and then merging it all together. Sorry, I'm not not a technically minded person. That's my Luddite explanation of it. But
so what we need is AI to come around my house on a Friday night when I've cracked open a bottle of wine, and then it's going to see a full glass of wine.
Full bottle of wine. Yeah, that's it.
You'd invite anyone to your house, wouldn't you, Kat?
Yeah, exactly. Carpenters, electricians, AI, come on round. Let's get started. Somebody who can carry a washing machine up 2 flights of stairs, come on round. Just for example. Yeah. House moving.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
like, I wonder what
happens
if you ask it to make a square circle. What would it do? You know, it's because it always wants to please and achieve something, and it never says, "Oh, I can't do that." It just spits something out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
don't
it's not
know.
like Alexa. Alexa tells me all the time she can't do things. Crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe I should be more Alexa. Yeah, it's a strange thing. It is a bit strange. I suppose it's something we have to get used to be honest, but I'm not sure I'm with AI yet.
Yeah, I don't think it's going away, but equally, I don't think it's as impressive as some people are making out. You know, some people are saying there's only going to be like a handful of jobs left, you know, in 10 years' time, and I don't know if it'll go that far, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah. Mike,
I mean, it must play on. Oh, what? Out of work in 10 years' time?
Yeah, with Blether, it'll be taken on by like some attractively created AI. I'll be fine, but like some attractively created.
I could be here with hair due to AI. You never know.
Oh, I'd love to see what you're like with hair on AI. Let some of the guys at home please create me a mic with hair. I'd love that.
Just get me to draw it. I can do
it without my hair.
Yes. I'll get Stephen making a mic with hair.
Yeah, there you go.
You make it like really long, like I don't know, like
a Viking.
I think of a Chris Hemsworth style Thor hair. That would be cool.
Amazing.
I'm sure. Is that not under there when you take the hat off? No.
Never was. Yeah, I did have hair once upon a time, but it's never that cool. But my hair when I did have hair was probably a bit more like yours.
Oh, this is just a guddle, just a mess. But yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I had Swifts land on me every year. What?
Beautiful. You're like a little pagoda.
This has been so much fun.
I know. Very good.
It's an area of whiskey that we haven't really talked about. We maybe talked about it, like the guys like Mark Watt or Andrew at Little Brown Dog and stuff, as to why they've come up with certain designs, but to get such a much deeper insight into it from the mind of somebody like yourself, Steve, has been absolutely fantastic. I hope the guys at home have enjoyed it as well. They're all off to spend some money in a one-on-one Lalique special edition glass or an 85-year-old Gordon MacPhail because the design looks good.
I'm going to go and buy a Tam O'Shanter print because it's literally what I used to read my kids every Halloween. Love that.
Yeah, well, if you do want to, let me know. I mean, you can jump. If anyone does want to have a look, they can jump on my socials or onto my website. and I've got prints and various bits and bobs there as well. It's not all whiskey related. It's usually whiskey or Scotland adjacent, but you can kind of scope that out and see. Yeah, I've been working on so all these Scottish myths and legends that I did for Lady of the Glen. Again, they're the perfect client because they give me usage rights, which means that, you know, they use the illustrations for labels, but I'm allowed to use them, you know, as long as it's not competing in any way. So I've been working on a calendar. So I've got a calendar coming out next week that's, you know, each month of the year tied in with a different Scottish myth and legend. And then it's a pagan calendar as well. So it's got like the lunar cycles. It tells you when like Maiden and Samhain and all these different old like pagan festivals are on. And then there's Gaelic translations to a lot of like the days and the months and things like that as well. So I was like, yeah, I'll just chuck it on the calendar. It'll only take a day or two. And then like 3 weeks later, I finally finished it. Yeah.
I love
That's
that.
good. Guys, if you're watching or catching up, I've just popped the link to Stephen's website on the chat there. We haven't even touched your tours. Yeah, that's something that if you're ever in Edinburgh, guys, if you're coming over to Scotland, you're coming over to Edinburgh, hit Stephen up. He does walking tours. You can do bespoke tours and tastings, and that it's you know, the design thing is just one element of what you do, isn't it? And we've spent 2 hours talking about that.
Yeah, design, things, events. I help run a drinks festival at the Biscuit Factory every year. So, like I said, like keep a lot of plates spinning just to keep myself entertained. I work from home most of the time, so one of the reasons I do the walking tours is to get me out of the house. So, on a Tuesday, on a Thursday, I do a walking tour of Edinburgh, and we go to 4 or 5 different pubs. Some of them are a bit more whiskey than the others, but we usually have a dram of whiskey and maybe like a beer pairing, some haggis or something like that. And you get, over like the course of 2.5 hours, a whiskey tasting, but then like a breakdown of the history of the city through the prism of Scotch whiskey. Because, you know, Scotch whiskey goes into so many different aspects of like clans and witchcraft and gunpowder making and all sorts. So it's it's quite a fun way to do it. And typically it's usually like, you know, it's like Americans, Germans, it's folk that have literally just dropped their bags off at the hotel and then they come along, and it's a good way for them to experience the city for the first time as well. But then I do like bespoke tours and tastings. I just had some private clients that I took to Woodrow's, for example. Just like to keep myself busy with stuff like that. So I'm still involved in the industry and, you know, sharing what I know, passing on people to my contacts. Yeah.
How do people book in for that? If anybody's watching and they're down in Edinburgh, how do people find you and book you for your tours?
Again, they can go on my website. So my website is, it's like, how do I put all of this stuff into one place? So my website, you've got a design section, an illustration section, and then like a whiskey section. That in the whiskey section, it talks about like my events, the tours that I do, and you can book directly from there or through like TripAdvisor or Viator, Get Your Guide, that type of thing. Or if you just get stuck, just send me a message on Instagram or just email me through the website, and can arrange something if you do want to.
Yeah, next time I'm in Edinburgh, I'm going to look you up and come and do one of your tours. It sounds good. Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been such a treat, honestly. Like to explore the other side of whiskey, and that's what the Blether's all about. It's like kind of meeting people in the industry, but like sort of all aspects of the industry. So yeah, to hear about what you do is fantastic. And I've been so excited about getting you on because I knew you were going to be interesting. Even though you told me in an email, well, okay, but I don't think I'll be that interesting.
No.
So, yeah,
well, at least I've got another video on YouTube. It's not just my eyes pointing in different directions now. So
I'm going to find that when we finish.
Yeah.
Every Stephen Shan video I'm going to be watching looking for you.
Yeah, well, have fun with that.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. It's been great fun.
Yeah, it's been great, guys. Yeah, time's flown by. That was amazing. That was really good fun.
And we'll get you back on. You're now a friend of the Blether, so we'll get you back on when you've got some exciting news to share with Mike, by the sounds of things. So watch out, guys.
Yeah, we will soon. Cool.
And
great, guys.
you know, a new logo wouldn't go amiss as well.
A new Blether logo, yes.
I'll send you a
yeah.
That's one, guys. Right. Well, I'll jump off then. But yeah, been a pleasure, and thanks to everybody who's been
Thank you, Stephen.
Cheers,
Take
guys.
care.
Bye,
Thank you,
bye.
everyone, for watching.
Bye.
And yeah, we will see you all.
Yes.
Yes, we're not. We're still here. Yes, we will see you all next week with our next guest, who is still behind a curtain waiting to be unveiled because we had to switch things around a little bit due to a couple of events we've got coming up. So we will have a guest next week, which we're very excited about, even though it might be me or both.
The calendars are slightly fluid just now. We've had a couple of swaps around. We've had a couple of major life incidents, babies and house moves, and guests having to change dates. So we'll catch up and we will let you know as soon as we know who's going to be on next week.
Donner Pass, Whisky has been on. I don't know if you saw his comments. He has had a bit of an incident with his car.
Oh, his
Not
car is so
the time to have a leaky sunroof. Yeah, stick some hot water bottles in it overnight. And
bag of rice. Just fill it with rice.
Bag of rice.
Loads of rice.
That's not a bag of rice. That's like a field of rice. You need to chuck in the car.
Like popcorn by the morning. Because it's swollen up. Because it smells up. Because it'll be so swollen with moisture.
You can't backtrack on that.
Yeah, definitely. It's gonna look like popcorn.
The key of popcorn is the corn bit.
Well, yeah, but
pop when you boil it.
Well, yeah. Anyway, put some rice in your car. Maybe don't. I don't know. I'm not a mechanic.
Well, we've had to wait 2 hours, but we've got our catechism. Guys, it's been great fun once again. Thank you all for listening. And as always, if you're watching retrospectively or catching up, ping any questions you've got. We will do our best to answer. And Slange back. Cheers, guys. Good night.